Allen. When I was married to Betty, we had our first son was named James Allen.
In their spare time, the two men continued to mirror each other's behavior. Both men liked to unwind after work by smoking the same brand of cigarettes and drinking the same make of beer. They both enjoyed woodwork and built basement workshops in their houses. Outside, they had white benches built around the trunk of a tree in their gardens, where Jim Lewis's remains to this day. One of the more astonishing coincidences occurred over holiday plans. There's nothing unusual in going to Florida every year, but Florida has thousands of miles of beaches, and every year Jim Lewis and Jim Springer would go to exactly the same stretch of beach.
Several times I've been to St. Petersburg Beach at a particular spot of about 1 mile long, and it's got water around it. I got a canal on one side and of course the Gulf on the other. It was very amazing that we never ran across one another because we had vacationed there a couple times about the same time.
Wives with the same names, same jobs, same hobbies, even the same holiday destination. But one of the biggest surprises came after they met. They were invited to the Minnesota Center for Twins Research, where they took a battery of tests. The results were so similar, the researchers made them take the tests again.
Some of the tests that Jim and I took on the multiple choice, they had to do over again because Jim and I answered almost the same identical questions, the same answer.
The lives of the Jim twins seem so incredible because until very late in life, they'd never even met. Were the similarities coincidences or some form of telepathic communication? Their identical genetic makeup would account for some of these similarities, but the names of their wives, sons, and even dogs? Skeptics argue that it's easy to be deceived.
We start looking for certain types of coincidence. What you don't do is ask, well, what sort of car have they got? What sort of animals have they got? What sort of music do they like? You don't ask those other questions, which will come not to be coincidences. You just conveniently forget about those. So the process of selection produces an awful lot of amazing-looking coincidences that really aren't.
The Jim twins admit their lives aren't perfect mirrors. Jim Lewis divorced Betty and is now married to Sandy, while Jim Springer is still married to his Betty.
There is a joke about that. My wife's very afraid I'll meet a woman named Sandy one of these days.
But can the twins' story really be put down to a quirk of fate, a series of bizarre coincidences? The chance happenings in the twins' lives seem so unbelievable and so numerous that it's hard not to consider another possibility, that the two men were never completely separated back in 1939 and somehow maintained a telepathic link for the rest of their lives. Researchers have now studied the lives of hundreds of identical twins who were separated at birth, but none of them can match the astonishing series of coincidences shown by the Jim twins. According to a recent survey, nearly half the people in this country believe in ghosts, and 1 in 7 actually claims to have seen one. If you're among that number, then you may not find tonight's eyewitness accounts all that surprising. But reports of independent witnesses all seeing the same ghost over a short period of time are rare. And a further mystery remains. Why was this ghost more upset than the people who spotted her? Flitwick Manor has stood in the heart of the Bedfordshire countryside for 300 years. For over half its life, it was the ancestral home of the Brooks family. But at the end of last year, builders moved in to renovate the manor. It's now a hotel. They stumbled upon a secret room in the roof, which had lain undisturbed for decades.
We came up to start work on the roof and started to remove the tiles and then remove the brickwork. We found a small doorway. Then we found the evidence of a frame in the end of the roof, which indicated that sometime there was some sort of attic room here.
After that, things started to happen at Flitwick Manor. Just 3 days later, the hotel received an odd complaint from a departing guest.
As a hotel receptionist, I have had some odd complaints, but I have to say that I've never had a complaint like this before.
Everything all right for you, sir?
No, not really.
Why? What happened?
I think I had a visitor during the night. Something or someone. I don't know what happened. I just know I never want to stay in that room again.
I'm sorry you had an uncomfortable night. Can I get someone to help you with those
No,
bags?
it's all right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
He seemed slightly nervous then. I didn't really know quite what to say, and basically didn't really take a lot of notice of it.
But from then on, various members of staff began to notice that something had changed at Flitwick Manor. Sonia Banks, the hotel manager, was staying on the second floor one night.
I had just locked up the hotel and I was retiring to room 8. Then I heard footsteps walking across the ceiling and a door slam towards the front of the house where the little room had been discovered. I must say I was a bit taken aback and surprised at this because I was the only person in the hotel that night.
Sonia is not the only person to have experienced a presence of some kind. Chef Duncan Poyser also had to sleep at the hotel one night. His bedroom was also on the second floor.
I retired to bed at about 1 o'clock. Just lay on my back, gently drifting. When I tried to turn, I couldn't move the bottoms of my legs.
It was as if someone or something was sitting on them, but there was no one there.
Tried again a second time. The third time was as if the weight lifted up. I was a little bit shocked and startled. It was just a really strange experience, really strange feeling.
So what could possibly be happening at Flitwick Manor? The first paranormal activity came within days of the opening up of the hidden attic room. Had the builders released something, some spirit, which was now returning to its old haunting ground?
Come on.
One clue may lie with this man. John Lyle is the last direct descendant of the Brooks family to have lived at Flitwick. He's now retired to his farm in Wiltshire, but 50 years ago, John spent his childhood at the manor.
My mother used to tell us when we were children that when she lay in bed at night, she would hear a ghost knocking on the bedroom door. And there was also quite a few stories in the village about the fact that Flitwick Manor was haunted.
Those stories have been forgotten in recent times, until the hurried departure of that hotel guest. John Hines will never forget his stay at Flitwick Manor.
I detected that there was something in the room with me. I got a feeling that there was a presence there. I can't describe it.
John Hines had checked into his room at Flitwick following a business conference. He went to bed around 1 a.m.
Five minutes later, something very heavy landed on the foot of the bed. Fumbled around to try and find a light switch. And there was nothing there. Nothing there at all. Oh, this is crazy, John. You know, go back to sleep. I tried to settle down again. A few minutes later, as a shuffling at the bottom of the bed. There was a silhouette of a person actually sitting at the foot of the bed. I froze. I was petrified.
Who are you? What do you want?
No response from her. She just sat there gazing out towards the window.
John spent the rest of the night awake, a grown man too scared to turn the lights off.
I consider myself to be a very skeptical person, and I really can't believe that it was a ghost that I saw. But I've no other explanation for it.
Is there anything in the history of Flitwick Manor which might explain the apparition? Richard Morgan is another descendant of the Brooks family who lived there throughout the 19th century. He has made a detailed study of his family's history.
The first of the family to live here, John Thomas Brooks, kept a diary, and that describes the life here. It's quite clear that the most important event, as far as the diarist was concerned, was the death of a much-loved only daughter, Mary Ann Brooks, who was only 26.
This is the entry for the 20th of September, 1848.
I sat by her dying bed, watching her with the most intense earnestness and misery. And at 7 o'clock, her breathing having gradually become weaker and weaker, she gently drew her last breath on earth.
They were all very shocked when the daughter died. It was clearly a terrible shock to them all. And I think the mother in particular one must pick out as being a tragic figure. She outlived her husband by 20 years. She died aged 86 of senile decay, and I think one has to say that she is rather a sad figure.
Could this woman's personal tragedy be linked to John Hines' ghostly sighting, or the events which happened the very next night? Hotel receptionist Lydia Dawson had a night she'll never forget.
Heart was just beating so fast, and I was just begging that she'd go away. My heart was thumping the whole time. I'd just never seen anything like it. I came back into the room. I found that all the lights were on, and I know I hadn't actually put them on myself. I think the reason that I was actually so upset was I sensed that she was crying, so she was upset, which was then causing me to feel upset.
And at Flitwick Manor, the unexplained happenings continue even today.
Whoever she is, she's totally harmless, and we've just got used to having her around.
Perhaps, but the staff don't like to stay over anymore. Things have now quietened down at the manor, but it just goes to show you ought to think twice before getting the builders in. I'll be back next week with a special edition of Strange But True. Until then, good night. This is a map of Greater Los Angeles. 50 miles across, 2,500 square miles in all. Now, if someone goes missing in this sprawling city, even a highly organized search can't guarantee to find them. Etta Smith claimed no special psychic powers, no history of clairvoyance, but she succeeded where the whole of the Los Angeles Police Department failed. How she did it is a matter of debate. What she did is beyond question.
I've lived in Los Angeles now for 26 years. A day I'll never forget will be December 17th, 1980. That day changed my life, had an impact on me that I'll never forget. I'll never be the same person that I was prior to that date.
Okay, kid. Right.
That day started as normal as any other. Start getting ready for it, get the children ready. It was no different than any other day.
Okay. Bye, Mom.
Bye.
Bye, Mommy. Bye, honey.
A single mother with 2 children, Etta Smith lived in the Los Angeles suburb of Sylmar. She worked as an administrator at the Lockheed Aircraft Company in nearby Burbank. It was there she first heard of the disappearance of local woman Melanie Uribe.
KNBC News from Los Angeles. The headlines at 9. The police department is conducting a house-to-house search for a missing nurse, Melanie Uribe. The 31-year-old was last...
It was really strange because as soon as the announcer said they were making a house-to-house search, I had some kind of a visual image, like what you would see on a movie screen. I could see where she was. I know it's a canyon area. I see a dirt path going off to the right, and I see a hill. And at the end of the dirt path, I see white through shrubbery. And I thought, that's odd. Something tells me she's not in the house, and then I see this picture. Why?
Etta left work that day profoundly troubled. Her premonition was proving impossible to ignore.
As I'm headed home, this thing still won't leave me alone. I couldn't dismiss it. So I'm saying maybe I should stop and tell the police. And then something is telling me, nah, they're gonna think you're nuts. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but what if she's alive, and what if I'm right? What if somebody needs to get to her? Can I in good conscience ignore that possibility and go home?
Etta decided it was her duty to tell the police. What she didn't know was that the police had found the missing woman's pickup truck, abandoned and in flames. They now suspected they were in a case of abduction and possibly murder.
Mr. Smith, I'm Detective Lee Ryan. I'm handling the Uribe case. How can I help?
Well, I know it may sound weird, but I think she might be dead. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, she could be alive, but...
She was a very nicely dressed lady, very professional looking, very well phrased. Her demeanor was such that she was very credible on initial appearance.
I think I know where she is. I had kind of a psychic experience, I guess.
She made several statements at the time that she didn't want to be considered a kook or a nut. She wasn't crazy, although we might think she is when we heard what she had to say.
Do you think you could possibly locate Miss Uribe on this map?
Sure.
I was following with my finger on the map, and I remember stopping and saying, this is the area. I still to this day don't know why.
She's here, Lopez Canyon. There are these hills in the background and some sort of a track through the scrub.
That's quite a big area.
But I know she's right here. And she's hidden in the undergrowth.
The city of Los Angeles is huge, and this particular map included some of the county, but to be able to pinpoint an area was absolutely incredible.
Do you have any connection with the missing person?
No.
Okay, ma'am. What I'd like to do now, if I may, is take down your address and phone number. I'd like to talk to my commander, and we'll follow up your lead.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, I'm so sure about this that I think I'm gonna follow this up myself.
When Etta Smith left the station, I shook her hand, thanked her very much for her concern, not only as a citizen, but as a possible witness. I thanked her for her coming in on her own time.
I felt at least I had done my part, be I right or wrong. If I was wrong, that would be wonderful. But if I was right, it would be a very sad time.
Still disturbed by her vision, Etta went home and told her children and her niece Deborah about the day's extraordinary events.
So now I don't know what to do. I just hope the police will do something.
I have such a strong feeling about this. I think I'm gonna have to go up there and take a look myself.
Well, you can't go alone.
Well, I think I should.
Oh, please, please, Mommy, let us come with you.
I was 8 years old, and my mama came home from work, and she said she had a premonition, and she explained it to be like a daydream. And we didn't understand it really at the time, but we got very excited about it.
Please, please, Mommy, let us come.
We were so anxious, we really wanted to go, and we just weren't going to let her go without us.
Etta's decision to go to the canyon marked a deepening of her involvement in the case. She was now being drawn into the investigation in a way she could no longer foresee or control.
I said, okay, this is what I need you to do. We're going to drive up in the canyon, try to look and see if you notice anything white through shrubbery. We drove very slowly. I'm looking to the left, I'm looking to the right, they're looking. And I said to Deborah, you know, I don't see anything right here, but I know she's in this canyon. I feel it. I pulled the van over. Deborah and I got out. I could see tire marks, and for some reason, I felt compelled to touch them.
Oh, no. I know this was her truck.
As soon as I laid my fingers inside the indentions in the dirt from the tire marks, it was like, then I really felt scared. I really felt a trembling inside of me.
Come on, kids, we gotta get out of here.
Mom!
Come on, now!
As Etta drove back down the canyon, she began to regret ever having involved her children in the search.
I'm thinking, this thing is really out of hand now. And now I'm starting to feel guilty because I have them with me doing something that they have no business doing. I felt this emotion inside my body, like impending fear.
Mom, look! There's something white in the brush, just like you said.
Tina, come on.
We headed back down the canyon, and about halfway down the canyon, I thought I saw something, and I told my mother, and she didn't want to believe me.
I just think we really better go home.
No, there was something back there. We can just back up, can't we?
Come on, Mom! We have to go back.
I'm not so sure about this. But, hey.
At this point, we were very, very excited, and not with joy, but with fear in a sense.
Andy, stay in the car.
Mom?
Oh my God.
It was like everything in me exploded. It was like thunder and lightning and fear and rage because this object had on white nurse's shoes.
It's her.
Okay, right. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go to the next call box, we'll phone the police, and then just tell them what happened.
Hey, Mom, look!
All of the trauma and all of the fear and everything that I had been feeling building up all just went crazy.
Oh my God. There's this woman, and I think she's dead. You know, Melanie, you're right behind us.
All right, calm down.
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I got enough out to let him know that we had indeed found a body.
She's over here.
16W41, be advised, I'm at Lopez Canyon. I'm an apparent homicide. Victim appears to be a female. Requesting divisional detectives and a coroner. Over. I need you to make a statement, ma'am.
Okay.
Why don't we step over to the car and wait for the detectives to arrive, then we'll take you down to the station.
Okay.
The officer came back in just a few minutes, and I said, is it her? And he said, well, of course I can't be for sure, but from what I see in all probability, I would say it probably is. I said, oh my God. Oh.
Having made her statement to the police, Etta went home.
All of us were pretty shaken up, but we felt a little better once we got home, shut the door. We began to feel a little bit of security.
Yes?
Etta Smith,
Uh-huh.
LAPD, ma'am. We'd like you to come down to the station with us. It's about the Uribe case.
But I only just finished making a statement to one of your men. I've already talked to Detective Ryan.
Well, that's what we want to talk to you about, so if you'd come with us.
Are you sure you really need me to go through all this again?
Put it this way, ma'am. We want you to come along with us now.
Just a moment. Look, kids, I've got to go out now. Deborah
They
will be-
explained to me that what they would like for me to do is answer a few questions so that they could fill out their report regarding this body. To me, that seemed like a logical request. They assured me they would bring me back. I said, okay, no problem.
How did you know the body was there?
Well, I saw the place. I had a vision.
You had a vision,
Yes.
and she was wearing white shoes in this vision of yours.
Yes, white.
So you went up to Lopez Canyon to look for the body yourself?
Yes.
And there it was?
Yes.
That's quite a series of coincidences, don't you think?
What are you trying to say?
Oh, come on, Etta. There's always one person who knows where the body is.
Well, I was only trying to help. Ask Detective Ryan. He knows I'm telling the truth.
You expect us to believe that you had a vision and you go up to this canyon and you find this body?
By yourself?
Yes.
Come on, Etta.
I know it sounds crazy.
We
but
went
I
through it
felt
again,
compelled when I
and
had-
again, and then again. Finally, about 10 o'clock, I start to realize something isn't right here.
Look, I know it sounds crazy,
Come on,
but
Anna.
I had this experience, and I felt compelled to go up there.
You felt compelled, but you took your children with you?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense, Etta.
I was not thinking straight.
Etta, I don't think this is washing. I don't believe you.
Detective Ryan was now working on another case. He was told that Etta had been taken into custody.
I was infuriated. I wanted to know why. I asked why. And I was told that the detectives now that are handling the case believe that she's more involved than what she told you.
Have you ever known Melanie Uribe?
No, of course not.
Look, Etta, I'm going to be straight with you. We haven't got any other leads in this case. And along comes a woman who says she knows where the body is.
But I came to see you.
Yeah, well, you could be setting yourself up with an alibi.
What more can I do or say to convince you guys? Look, I gotta get to my kids. Look, give me a lie detector test.
I said,
If you give
if you're
me a
having a
test,
problem believing
You'll
me,
know I'm telling the truth.
then let me volunteer for a lie detector or polygraph. Once I do that, you'll know I'm telling the truth. You'll be happy. I'll be happy. I said, okay.
I'm not at all happy about this. I'm just not sure about it. It's late. She's not in a fit state to take the test. I think we should just leave it till the morning.
Please, let's just get this thing over with, and I can get out of here.
Let's do it.
Have your arm, please.
By offering to take a polygraph test, Etta thought at last she'd found the perfect way to convince the detectives she was telling the truth.
Are you taking this polygraph of your own free will?
Yes.
Is your name Etta Louise Smith?
Yes.
Are you 32 years of age?
Yes.
Do you work at the Lockheed Aircraft Plant, Burbank?
Yes.
Do you know or have you ever known Melanie Uribe?
He did it once. Then he asked me if we could do it again. Sure. So he went through it
Are you
again.
32 years of age?
Yes.
All in all, we were probably there hour and a half, 2 hours.
Is that it?
All finished. Thank you for your time. It'll be a few minutes before I can let you have the results.
It was now 3 in the morning. Etta had been in custody for 9 hours.
Okay, Etta. We have the results. According to this polygraph, you were lying to us about your so-called visions. And you were also lying to us when you said you didn't know Melanie Uribe.
No, I don't believe that.
This is what I'm saying. Inside, oh no, there's a mistake. Outside, it's like, what? But my mind is spinning. How can you fail a polygraph when you're telling the truth?
Is there anything else you want to tell us about this case now?
It looks like you're heading straight for a charge of murder.
What?
You're under arrest, Etta.
My mind is spinning. Like I said, I've been honest, I've been cooperative, and you're gonna book me for murder? I said, you know what? Fine. When the wheels of justice turn, you're gonna find out you've made a very serious mistake. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream, I wanted to say no. But I knew that's what they were trying to do to me. And something inside said no. I won't let them do that to me. Fine, take me to jail. But I was scared. I'm strip searched. I have to take off all my clothes. They hose me down with something. I mean, I'm totally violated by the system that I thought was there to protect me.
I was very upset. I had promised her she would not be taken in custody because she was a friendly witness. She wasn't seeking any form of monetary or personal gain. And that I felt that it had broken all the moral rules and standards that the Los Angeles Police Department and its detectives are expected to uphold to the community and the citizens.
And I'll need an attorney, Debbie. And could you call Ann about the kids? Yeah, they better have a note for school. And there's some burgers in the freezer if you could pull
With
those
Etta
out.
under arrest, the hunt for the real killers had come to a standstill.
Could your ring work for me tomorrow?
The pursuit of her premonition had plunged her into a nightmare.
How's T and Andy?
We didn't understand why she was not coming home.
Tell them I love them.
We were devastated.
Okay, bye-bye.
She's our mother. She didn't do anything. She's not supposed to be there. She's supposed to be here with us.
I'm dumbfounded. But I won't cry. I won't give in. And I tried to figure out how in the world I end up there trying to help somebody.
You're free to go.
What? Really?
Etta was suddenly free. At a party, 3 men had been overheard boasting of having killed Melanie Uribe. The police had no further interest in Etta Smith.
For some reason, something way deep down inside of me came up in a voice. And it says, I don't have to be strong anymore. That's all I could say. It was the weirdest thing. And I was crying. I don't have to be strong anymore. I could not make it 10 feet. I collapsed.
After being held as a murder suspect for nearly 4 days, Etta was reunited with her family.
Andy, T. Mom! How are you guys? How are you? Are you okay? Good kids. Are you okay, Mom? How are you? I missed you. Yes. I missed you so much. You did.
When she finally did come home, we were relieved. We were happy. We were just filled with joy. And it was just the best thing ever to have our mom back.
But Etta's relief was short-lived. The trauma of her imprisonment had left its scars.
I couldn't get back to normal. Nothing was the same. Nothing was the same. I wasn't the same person. Home didn't feel the same. I couldn't seem to adjust.
Etta was haunted by her experience. In a battle to clear her name and exorcise her ordeal, she decided to sue the Los Angeles Police Department for wrongful arrest. Detective Ryan gave evidence on her behalf.
I felt it was terrible injustice. She'd put her job on the line, she'd put her standing on the line in the community, and it was just a real embarrassing situation for the Los Angeles Police Department.
After 7 days of testimony, the judge ruled in Etta's favor, and she was awarded $26,000 in damages. Her story had been vindicated.
This case was very unusual and astonishing. I didn't hold very much credibility for persons who claim they can see into the future and predict the unknown. And I wouldn't say that I'd bet there would be 1 in 1,000 that I thought could do it, much less maybe 1 in 1,000,000. I was a disbeliever until I talked with Etta Smith.
Etta's case is unprecedented. She sued the police because they doubted her psychic abilities, and she won. And the trial cleared up one mystery for Etta. She didn't fail the lie detector test the night she was arrested. The results had been inconclusive, but the detectives couldn't believe she was telling the truth, so they decided to tell her she'd failed. Good night. Good evening. For nearly 50 years, sightings of UFOs, unidentified flying objects, have provoked a mixture of excitement and derision. But amidst the ballyhoo, there is a small group of people whose testimony deserves to be taken seriously. They are the professional pilots, who are best placed literally to report and evaluate a UFO sighting. Tonight, serving pilots speak for the first time about UFOs they have seen and the pressures that prevented them from speaking out. There's no doubt they've all seen something. But what did they see?
065, 450 knots.
For almost 50 years now, military and civil pilots have been reporting strange objects in the sky. The very first UFO sighting from the air happened on the 24th of June, 1947. A pilot with the United States Forest Service was out searching for a missing plane over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state. Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 bright objects in the sky, traveling at fantastic speed. He said they looked like a saucer would if you skipped it across water.
Do you believe in flying saucers? Have you any convincing reasons why science fiction shouldn't one day become reality?
The public were captivated.
We have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources.
In Washington, ghost-like objects dart across the radar screen at the CAA Traffic Control Center.
In the Cold War atmosphere of the times, the authorities were forced to respond to the growing public panic.
We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion, and that is that it does not contain any pattern that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States.
But the first UFO death in January 1948 set a pattern of official secrecy and public suspicion. A group of P-51 Mustangs flying over Kentucky were requested to investigate a UFO. They detected a large object flying at high altitude. One of the pilots, Captain Thomas Mantell, gave chase, describing what he saw to ground control. "It is a metallic object," he said, "tremendous in size. I'm going in for a better look." Minutes later, Mantell crashed.
The problem was that they didn't actually know what had happened to Mantell. There was no obvious explanation. So they had to hastily put together the conclusion that what he'd seen was the planet Venus and that he'd been trying to forlornly chase that.
But this seemed an unlikely mistake for an experienced fighter pilot.
Everybody, for the time at least, accepted it until the doubts began to grow that if they were prepared not to tell the truth about that, what was it that they were trying to hide? And in many senses, that was a great mistake that they made because that instigated the claims of a cover-up.
Britain, too, had its flying saucer reports. Winston Churchill wrote a memo about them. What, he wanted to know, did it all amount to? Once again, it was the evidence of pilots that provoked most concern to the authorities.
Anything received from our own RAF pilots was examined with very great care. We're talking about very highly trained people whose job in life is to fly about the skies and not to be conned by optical illusions or clouds or whatever. So one had to take seriously what they were saying.
There were several sightings by British pilots, but the authorities kept quiet about them.
The Air Ministry would not have been keen to let it become public knowledge that some of our pilots had seen flying saucers. We had no explanation. One could imagine the kind of tabloid headlines there would have been. We didn't want it.
On the day of the eclipse of the sun, some of the crew and passengers of a BOAC stratocruiser...
But while military sightings remained secret, reports from civil pilots escaped censorship.
What it looked like, very roughly. I think there's no question that it was no illusion and that it was being intelligently handled.
In 1954, BOAC Captain James Howard reported a sighting.
It was July the 29th, 1954, and we were en route to Goose Bay in Labrador, flying at our assigned altitude of 19,000 feet. It was a lovely summer evening. I was looking down on the left-hand side of the airplane, and I saw through broken cloud something moving alongside us. There were 7 in all objects. There was one large one and 6 smaller ones. The big one also appeared to be changing its shape gradually, and it stayed with us. And the passengers became interested, naturally. And in fact, everybody was agog.
We couldn't tell the passengers what it was because we just didn't know. Some were laughing about it and some were saying, oh, it's Martians have landed and silly things like that, but no one knew.
By the 1960s, UFO sightings had become common amongst the general public. There were 100 sightings alone in the village of Warminster in 1967.
How many people here tonight are afraid of the thing? How many of you?
But the subject was no longer taken seriously. As the idea of flying saucers became more and more absurd, pilots were deterred from reporting sightings for fear of being open to ridicule. But in recent years, new information and new scientific methods have begun to provide rational explanations for some of the sightings of the past. In the Mantell case, for instance, there was a cover-up. The US Navy hadn't told the US Air Force about Skyhook, a secret high-altitude balloon. Mantell died trying to fly too high.
We know that what he saw was this gigantic balloon, which was at least 60,000 feet above the ground, at a height where Mantell's aircraft simply was incapable of going.
This previously inexplicable UFO sighting was filmed in 1973 in Bedfordshire and witnessed by large numbers of people. 20 years on, papers released through the American Freedom of Information Act revealed that a US jet fighter had run into trouble in the area and dumped fuel.
The fuel appears to have formed some kind of a ball of orange fire. It was exactly at the point where the cloud layers began. There was a particularly unusual meteorological circumstance that day, which therefore appears to have caused a ball of fire to literally bounce along in the wake of the aircraft across the tops of the clouds.
And when it finally disappeared...
And meteorologists have come up with an explanation for Captain Howard's sighting, a mirage brought on by rare atmospheric conditions.
just shrunk down until it was no more than just a speck. And then
Today's more rational climate is finally persuading pilots to come forward with their stories, like Graham Shepherd, who saw a UFO in 1967.
Now, the senior captain we were flying with at the time, he advised us strongly that we shouldn't report it, we should make no mention of it at all. And at that time, way back in 1967, he said quite clearly to us that it would compromise our careers if we talked about it.
He now speaks for the first time.
We were flying from Scotland back to London, cruising at about 24,000 feet. The Preston radar controller at the time, he advised us that we had fast-moving opposite direction traffic in the airway, heading towards us at our 12 o'clock position, which was straight ahead. Now, of course, we looked out, three-man crew, we looked out, and into view almost immediately came a disc-shaped craft. The sun was shining on it. I was looking down on a disc about 30 feet diameter with a slightly raised center portion, no markings that I can remember, but it was shining in the sunlight. It was certainly metallic. Any high-speed airplane so close to us would have given us a bump. Now, the very curious thing about this very close approach is that it didn't leave a shockwave.
What we've got nowadays can't match what we saw 17 years ago.
Two former crewmates meet up for the first time since 1978, when they flew together on a Dan Air flight from London to Malta. They believe they had a close encounter and are telling their story for the first time on television.
It was a beautiful day. It was 8/8 blue, absolutely gin clear. And as we looked out to the right and about at a 60-degree angle through the aircraft's cockpit roof, we saw this large spherical object, very bright circular object.
I noticed next to it a couple of smaller ones. I pointed this out to the captain sitting next to me, and we both looked at it for a few seconds. And as we were watching it, they all disappeared in different directions at an incredible acceleration.
I've spent quite a bit of time in the Air Force firing rockets and things like that and other weapons, but I've never seen anything accelerate as rapidly as this object.
Many pilots who believe they've seen UFOs remark on the dramatic impact of the experience.
Well, I've never seen anything like it in 25 years of flying now. It's the only time I've ever seen anything in the air that I couldn't explain.
Up until this particular incident, I hadn't been a believer in UFOs. I thought it was all a figment of people's imaginations. But since that date, I must admit I'm a great believer.
These recent accounts by pilots have not yet been closely analyzed. When they are, perfectly natural explanations may emerge. But air-to-air sightings remain the strongest UFO cases on record, and the most likely yet to yield up a story which might not be explained away. The most convincing UFO evidence would involve independent sightings by a number of pilots and confirmation by radar. There is one such case. It's called the Kaikoura incident. This is the Kaikoura Peninsula in New Zealand. There's a regular air freight run between Wellington and Christchurch with a return stop at Blenheim and then back to Wellington. Now, along this deserted coastline, fringed by the featureless expanse of the South Pacific, there were 3 detailed UFO sightings on one night. As you'll hear, the reports were made by professional pilots and backed up by ground observers. What's more, Wellington radar also tracked the objects. Then a film crew went up, and the pictures they brought back led to a government inquiry. The remarkable series of events began late on December the 20th, 1978, an apparently ordinary night at Wellington, New Zealand's busiest airport. Cargo planes were loading up for their routine runs, delivering freight to Christchurch, 200 miles away on South Island. The pilots were expecting a run-of-the-mill flight over the Pacific Ocean. Instead, they were about to embark on the strangest trip of their lives. The bizarre happenings began at the New Zealand RAF base in Blenheim, 70 miles from Wellington, just before midnight, as Warrant Officer Ian Uffendell, in charge of airport security, was finishing off his checks.
I was doing my final rounds before retiring for the night, and driving up the tarmac, I noticed these lights, which I thought was a Bristol freighter. I stopped to watch the airplane approach and land, which it didn't do.
This thing should have landed by now.
At Wellington Airport that night, the phone call was answered by radar operator John Cordy.
We've also got unidentified craft on the radar here.
What's going on then?
I just don't know.
We established there was no aircraft approaching and realised then that what we were seeing was something that was a little bit out of the normal.
This is weird.
They would describe a light that they could see that would be moving north over the hills beyond Blenheim, and we would see coincidentally a target on our radar that was also moving north at the same time, and made us think that perhaps these things were related to each other.
What we were seeing was controlled movements, and the large light was like a mothership controlling two satellites.
It's spinning around now. Have you got any idea what it is?
Sorry, Blenheim. We're as baffled as you.
We were sure they were an aircraft because they were flying in too tight a pattern, and secondly, no aircraft had been notified to us as being airborne that night. They would had to have had a clearance from me to operate.
I know what the sky is all about. I know an aeroplane when I see it. I know a meteor when I see it. I know a star or a planet when I see it. And what we saw that night was none of those things.
All efforts to identify the strange objects failed. And then the mystery deepened. 2 planes were buzzed by UFOs in separate incidents on that same night. One of the aircraft was flying south over the Kaikoura Peninsula towards Christchurch. It was piloted by Captain Vern Powell and First Officer Ian Perry.
Look here, we got company. There shouldn't be anything out there. Wellington Air Traffic Control, this is Argosy SAF. Can you confirm an aircraft in front of us?
We can't make radio contact, but we've got a fix on the radar. We've been tracking them for 3 hours now.
There's a glowing light just in front of us. Hard to say what range it is, but it's definitely airborne.
There's nothing scheduled to be out there.
What on earth is it then?
The effect on me was prickling at the back of my neck. That soon ceased when I realised that we weren't being attacked at all, that it was just out there.
The target tracked with him for 40 miles. In the same position that we saw the radar return, Vernon, his co-pilot, saw a large white light which tracked along with them.
It was now 4 a.m. After trailing the plane, the object disappeared from view. The next shock came as the crew prepared to land at Christchurch.
All systems ready for landing.
Flaps 20 degrees.
Switched in radar. What the hell was that?
Up there!
We noticed a blip on our radar screen that went across from right to left very, very fast. Far quicker than an aircraft with very, very bright light, and it was streaking across from right to left.
God, look at the speed it's going.
We figured that it must have been at least 15,000 kilometres an hour.
The radar operators at Wellington Airport couldn't believe what they were seeing.
We tried everything we could think of, playing with our radar controls to get rid of the target, to see if we could rationalise it, to sort it out. We couldn't. Something was happening, something unusual that I hadn't seen in my years as an air traffic controller.
I'm a trained pilot, had been flying for very many years. We got to know what aircraft lights look like and what the lights of cities are like. And this light that we saw on that particular night is nothing like I've ever seen before.
But the most dramatic moment of the night came as another freighter flown by Keith Hine was buzzed by an unidentified object.
Argosy SAE, this is an emergency call. The object is heading straight for you. Take avoiding action, now!
I must confess I was a little apprehensive at that stage as to just what was going on and what its intentions were. And then that began to move back in towards us, and at quite a rapid speed at one stage it was on an intercept course with us.
Somehow a collision was avoided, but nothing could stop news of the night's events leaking out. A news crew led by reporter Quentin Fogarty flew in to cover the story for Australian TV.
Just a couple of words for
I really thought all we'd be getting would be some footage of pilots at the control, interiors of the aircraft, no more.
But within minutes, the trip took an unexpected turn.
Up here, quick! There seems to be something out there.
Dave, are you getting this?
I got it.
When we got onto the flight deck, we saw this string of lights, 3 or 4, sometimes as many as 5 lights.
What do you think they are? I don't know. They definitely shouldn't be there.
It started as a small pinpoint of light, and then they'd grow into this large, pulsating globe with sort of tinges of red and orange. And they would sort of keep that shape for a short time, then would go right down again to a little pinpoint. I just sort of sat there transfixed, and then I thought, hold on, I'm up here doing a job, I'm a journalist, so I started doing just a wild commentary onto tape.
Myra, are you ready?
And David was doing his best to film.
Dave, you stay on it. Okay.
The people in the aeroplane were seeing lights in the sky where the radar was reporting. There was the same correlation between radar target and nocturnal light that was present on the previous occasion.
The strange light show ended after 15 minutes, and soon after the plane touched down safely in Christchurch. The freight was unloaded, but the crew still had to face the return journey to Wellington.
Quentin?